Welcome to Thor's Dragonship. Today, we'll be discussing manipulative time wasters.
Back of our truckers in a field of strife, sons of gold, hearts made of fire, conquering lands, fueling our desires, warring agents and lightning in our eyes. United we stand, strength won't compromise. From the east to the west, we sail, we roll with our warriors. Never feel alone, landscape of freedom. Beneath open skies, the promised land where our spirits arise. We battle the storms and tides of the sea. Now we've arrived in the land we're meant to be.
All right. We are live. Welcome in, everybody. Today is my first day hosting, and as you all know, I always ask people, do you want to be right or do you want to win? And my friend Mo, Big Mo from Fresh and Fit Podcast, he always asks another question. Are we asking the right questions? So today I have 3 such questions. Questions that I think will get to the heart of how to identify and deal with manipulative time wasters. So, welcome in, gentlemen. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Skull, you savages.
Skull, you
Skull.
savages.
We get to pop your cherry today, man.
Wouldn't be the first time.
So what do you got in store for us today, Tarl? I mean, you're hosting. Let's hear it, brother.
Well, I have my own personal frameworks for how I identify, whether or not I'm manipulating and wasting time and whether or not other people are doing it to me. So the first question right out the gate, we'll just ask it. How do you discern if something is a waste of time and if you are being manipulated? And this includes whether or not you're wasting time and being manipulative, because a lot of us today, we fall victim to this ourselves and we end up being the time wasters. So we'll go around the horn. Let's start with you, Mike.
I wasn't expecting you to jump to me right away.
Well, I could go, one way or the other, and you just happen to be.
I can hop
Mike.
in there.
You're first in line.
I can hop in there, Mike. Think while I talk.
Okay.
So one of the things
Tack.
one of the things that I was looking at recently is how they're still doing the practice of during your job interview, like assigning you like a task. Like let's say like you're learning something or you're going to be doing something in Excel. And so they'll have you spend like an hour on an assessment when it's not really an assessment, but they're having you do free work and then they just like ghost you. So understanding that like when it comes to like jobs, understand that you guys don't owe each other. You're 2 parties. You don't owe each other anything. Yet this one party is asking more out of you than should be expected when you're not getting anything in return.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I can go if Mike's still thinking.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
So I read so the concept of manipulative time wasters comes from Alan Roger Curry and his books on Mode 1. And I listened to Mode 1 and I also listened to his 3rd book, which is Say It Again. His 2nd book is dedicated entirely on this subject, on manipulative time wasters. But he goes into it, right? There's basically 4 types of women out there. You have reciprocators, you have rejectors, you have manipulative time wasters, and then you have wholesome pretenders, right? So we're talking about manipulative time wasters. You'll see these types of chicks very often on dating apps because there's a lot of chicks that will be on dating apps and they're just using dating apps for validation, right? They're using the dating apps like most people play Candy Crush. It's entertainment for them. So you'll identify these types of women very quickly because of their actions, right? One of the things I recommend for guys if they're using dating apps is to get to try to set a date and get off the app as quickly as possible, right? So within 8 to 10 messages, go for a definite date. If she will not go meet up with you, she just wants to talk. She's like, "Oh no, I need more time to build rapport and all this kind of stuff." She's a manipulative time waster, and you need to cut your losses. So when it comes to identifying them, it's an actions over words type thing, right? Will they do what you're asking them to do? If the answer is no, they're most likely wasting your time. And you need to cut those chicks off quickly and move on to the next chick. It ends up becoming a numbers game, you know.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I love how you said that. No more than 8 to 10 messages, because one of the things that I teach my guys and my clients is what I call the 5 for 5. No more than 5 messages from you and 5 messages from her before you guys are on a video call and you're setting the date.
Yeah, it's just smart because dating apps are meant to get off the dating app and meet in person, and people that just want to jaw jack online indefinitely, they're wasting your time. They're just monumentally wasting your time, and so you need to cut that shit off quickly.
So to answer your question, Viking, the reason I blanked out was because I can't remember, due to all the work I've been doing on myself, the work from great coaches like Paul and Thor here. I can't really remember the time I've had more than 10 seconds of interaction with a manipulative time waster. I was actually going through my phone looking for the screenshot of the one gal who's just like, I can't go on a date because it's my dog's birthday. I will be showing it today after I find it. But I don't, when I get the smell, when I can smell that manipulation, that stringing on, just like, I'm just like, nah, and it's done. And I do it so fast I don't even think about it anymore. That's why I blanked out, because I can't think of anything in recent years. Probably 15 years ago, if I thought really hard, I could think of someone. But as far as identifying them, Huds and Paul are exactly right.
It makes sense too, right? Because you don't have to sit there and try to hold these women accountable, because you're not going to change their manipulative bullshit behavior anyway. You just unmatch a bitch, right? You just, this isn't going anywhere. Unmatch, and you move on to the next one. Like, that's as simple as that. So it's easy. I can see how it could be easy for you to have an out of sight, out of mind mentality with it.
Yeah, when it comes to us guys here and guys that have been around a little bit, it's going to be a little bit harder to do that to us, because we don't give free attention. And that's really the manipulative time wasters need that attention. And you can kind of identify, because it's any form of behavior that she's exhibiting that generally is counterproductive to the achievement of your desired goals and objectives. However, it's camouflaged in such a way that it's attractive to you. The speech, the promise, or the hopes that it will lead to something different. And a lot of the cluster B types will use manipulative time wasting to slow you down and outthink you. And it's actually a pretty effective approach, especially if you're a thirsty guy.
It is. It is.
Yep. So you can put your first block up for it as no free attention. Now, where this gets trickier is when it's guys in your work circle and things like that, and people that are wasting your time. You ever run into a colleague that's sillily questioning you over and over again, and you're just gullible enough to keep answering them, and it's slowing you down and screwing you up at work? Anybody run into that sort of thing instead of?
Oh, it's constant. And then when somebody schedule a 1 hour meeting,
Yep.
and they have to make sure that somehow, some way they fill that full hour when it's really a 10-minute conversation.
Or it could have been an email.
Yeah, most meetings at work could have been an email. If you got another book, I think you guys should. I recommend you guys read, along with Mode 1 and all of Alan Roger Curry's books. But this one isn't an Alan Roger Curry book, but the 4-Hour Work Week. The 4-Hour Work Week will really it'll highlight to you work time wasters and what's actually wasting your time at work, because in the modern era, the brick and mortar mentality of going to work, going to the office, is you are there for 8 hours. And most people know that you don't really do 8 hours worth of actual work. Like a lot of it's filled up with water cooler talk, chit chatting with your cube mates, BS meetings that could have been emails, all this kind of stuff where you're only actually doing maybe, a couple hours worth of real work in any given day. So once you realize that whole book teaches you how to optimize your time at work and convince your bosses to let you work remotely. So that way, when you can move away from the office time wasting space, you can go home, still have your job, still knock out your deadlines and do everything you need to do. But now you have more time in your life to do something that you actually fucking care about, like podcasting.
It actually gave me one of the best things that ever happened to me in my career outside of this. And the suggestion was that we all were getting bombarded with voice calls at the time. Text wasn't so big, but you'd be peppered all day long by silly questions. And it gave the suggestion that you change your voicemail to say, hey, I am busy between this time in the morning and that time in the morning. I won't be checking my emails till such and such time. If you leave a message here, you'll get priority as a callback. And then it frees your entire day up between two different time frames. And it kind of gives you some good plausible deniability when your bosses are all excited to get a hold of you and they hear, oh, you're doing work, even though it's a message. And then you can kind of do your own time management from there instead of trying to answer every phone call. You can even translate this into email. How many emails do you guys get? I only do emails now on Thursdays. If you have a job like that, it says, I'll respond to your email on Thursdays. If this is an emergency, please page me at such and such or send a text message with the subject that you're having trouble with or why you're doing it. Just eliminate that email right up front from internal and external clients. That has never cost me anything.
That's a good boundary.
That's actually really, sorry, I just wanted to speak on that because that is one of the best hacks that I've ever learned when it comes to managing stuff at a job, is going ahead and putting in on your calendar, because everybody is booking based on an Outlook calendar. You can put time blocks where you're going to be I don't mean to do quotes with that, but you're going to be working on something specifically and you are blocking your time so that you can take care of everything.
Yep, I do that with teams too. And it's real effective. And it ends up being, you're laying out a frame statement and you're laying out boundaries and expectations when you do that. And I would go so far as to say, test it out, middle of the road, and then push it to the hard edge in order to save your time. This is personal experience taking. And when your bosses say, I needed you, or I need this and this and this, you can back that edge back down. But now you know the boundaries of this frame and you're exhibiting strong behavior, which really makes it virtually impossible for other people to really manipulate you or even disrespect you, because it's all up front. And that's what I like about mode 1 type of communication, especially after you get past, everybody does indirect game with everybody else because they don't know where they stand. But once you get past that and you have rapport with somebody, you can go right to mode 1, and it's much more respectful to know where people stand. Even if you disagree or you're not happy with it, they'll engage you still when you reach that level of trust or rapport between two people. I hope that's good enough for you guys to be actionable. But that's one way to deal with the manipulative time waster, because they come in every form: text, social media, phone calls, right?
Well, that goes back to what I was talking about last week about the resolution I made, where a lot of times I'll type up the message that I'm going to send on social media and then I'll just delete it without sending it. So that way I can really feel that time waste. Because like what you said, Thor, that's a good example of setting a reasonable boundary so that you can focus on your actual work rather than people talking about the work, right? Because that's one of the habits that I've noticed that time wasters have, and we all can fall victim to this as well, right? Yeah. You got to know yourself first before you can know thy enemy, right?
Yeah, so you can waste your own time. I mean, we call it procrastination, right? But it's really your
mental masturbation, whatever you want to call it.
Your own time, sure.
Yep. And when you establish those boundaries, that's what allows you, as in your example, Thor, of making space for yourself, right? So you can actually focus on what you actually need to be doing rather than a bunch of busy work. Because, I'll give a little bit of an anecdotal example. My girl just lost her job. Why? Because of a manipulative time waster. Somebody that meant well was just shooting the shit while they were on break. Yeah. What happened? The break went too long. And my girl, rather than trying to deny what she did, she admitted to it, and they fired her over it. Yeah. Right? The other girl didn't get fired, the manipulative time waster didn't get fired. She got fired. Funny how that
No,
works.
and that's a big pitfall too. If you guys have all been in all hands meetings and things like that. You know how to identify the time wasters, right? You guys are familiar with the term grandstanding?
Oh yeah,
Where the one person has to get up and grandstand, lick the boss's nuts, and then lick the boss's assistant's nuts, and then just go on and on about however wonderful everybody is, and that he's just so proud to be a part of this team. And oh, I've done this too. He slips that in, kind of does that, or he delivers a shit sandwich. You guys all know what that is, right? All the good stuff, a little bit of shit in the middle, and then more good stuff, and they go on and on and on and on. Good way to identify those folks. Now, be careful with those folks.
There's a lot of those types of guys because they don't want to do actual work and they love socializing and stuff. So they like to keep meetings going as long as they possibly can, going to what Huds was saying. So we have these stand-up meetings in the morning that are meant to be like, hey, let's talk, like, what are you doing? X, Y, and Z. If you're not doing anything important that's pertaining to this meeting, you don't have to say anything. You're like, well, I don't have anything to add.
Yep.
Right. And that's okay to say, but like I have this one guy who works for me and I've had to pull him to the side and be like, dude, you don't have to tell him everything you're fucking working on, because none of that stuff you're working on matters in this meeting, but he likes to hear himself talk. He likes everyone to think that he's busy as hell and all this stuff. It's like, dude, stop it. You're not, no one cares.
Don't you hate it when you're
wrapping stuff is actually mildly effective. If it's done enough, they're entering the subconscious of the bosses and stuff. Now, some of them don't, they just get right through it and don't even deal with it. But you wouldn't see this if it wasn't partially effective, though.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes back to the women that are manipulative time wasters, they're doing this for their self-validation and the attention. They wouldn't do it if they didn't get the attention. So it means people are participating in this. So you got to be careful. That's for sure.
And then the meeting is going to end 15 minutes early. You're excited to get back to work, and they say, anyone have any questions?
Oh, God, not that guy. I had one guy on my boat.
It's the same guy every time.
Same guy, yep.
What if we... Because he doesn't want to go back to work.
It's funny. If you guys watch enough panel shows, you can pick out the people that are grandstanders and manipulative time wasters just from how they jump back at questions with other participants in these things. It's funny. You can absolutely do it. Once you see it, you can't stop. And it's like, I've had enough of that at work. Next channel,
Or people, and like sometimes you'll see this a lot. Like I see it a lot with Donovan, where someone will start putting like comments in the chat and they're bad faith arguments just to try to get the host's attention. But yeah, you're right, Thor. You also do see it a lot on the panel shows like Fresh and Fit, where it's a bad faith interjection where they completely take what someone said out of context and assume it's a lie just to get things going, and it's usually not the host.
No, that's very popular today. They have quite a repertoire of logical fallacies to continue that conversation. Manipulative time wasters really do use a lot of logical fallacies to continue a conversation that's really pointless and just waste time.
Mm-hmm.
Your favorite's the No True Scotsman.
Yep. And then here I promised, here is that chat. Paul's going to know right away what app this is from. This is from Bumble. Right on. Triple George is right by you. Let's meet for a drink there. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Tomorrow is actually my dog's birthday, so big plans already. What's the rest of your week like? Now, I know what Corey Wayne and Paul might say. Like, she did extend the branch to try again. But when I saw the fact that she's more interested in celebrating her dog's birthday by herself instead of going on a date with a handsome gentleman...
It's a bullshit excuse.
There is no way this is real. Are you serious? A girl said this?
Yep. This is from Bumble.
Oh, I can't. I'm washing my hair tomorrow night. But what's your?
I'm washing my hair.
What's your Thursday look like? Yeah.
But because that was the excuse, it wasn't like I got a thing, but I still want to see you. Then yes, of course, I would have given her a chance. But the moment I saw that, I was like, nah, and I instantly unmatched.
So would you
know what's interesting? Hold on.
Different? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what's different at Thor, I think we're going to say the same thing, is like she's being very specific about something versus being very general. When she's saying that, like, that's a manipulation technique. People tend to be more specific when they're lying.
Yeah, I agree. That's where I was going to go. But, since you said that, what if she told you back that, I can't make it that night or I'm going to be late because I'm shaving my cooch? Would you still continue to
that's a different one. It's
Oh,
like,
that's a
yes,
different story.
please
Very
take
different.
your time. Please.
That's a different kind of manipulation, right?
Well, then I would just be like, I mean, I could. Did you want a hand?
Yeah, like you want to. Let's
It's a
do 8
different kind of
p.m.
manipulation at a higher level, right?
Let's do 8 p.m. then. Make sure that thing's nice and smooth.
Or you
Oh,
pull
Well,
up
that's-
you pull up that meme from Up where the kid's like going through the wilderness.
Hey,
You
Mike,
send that to her.
Mike, put your chat back up because there was something I want to point out with this.
Sure. 1 second. Boom.
Okay, so we are talking about an Alan Roger Curry concept, right? The manipulative time waster, and also we've also mentioned mode 1, right? And there's basically 4 modes of communication that Alan teaches, right? And mode 1 is direct. And now a lot of people, when you hear mode 1, they think you're just walking up to chicks saying, "Hey, you want to fuck?" Right? And that's not necessarily the case. What mode 1 means is you're being direct.
right.
And what Mike's done here is he is being direct. He's being mode 1. He says, "Let's meet for a drink there tomorrow night, 6 p.m." You can't get more fucking clear than that. That is mode 1 communication. So a lot of guys like to shit on mode 1. It's like you if you are playing the game correctly, you don't have to be sexual. You can still be mode 1. So that's what I wanted to point out here with your chat here.
Yeah, 100%. And just looking at her comeback, which is tomorrow's actually my dog's birthday. It's just like, if she was interested in you, right? It would be like she would be more or less suggesting, let's change the plans to, would you want to come over and celebrate the dog's birthday with me, right? That would be showing true interest. But instead, she's just going to be like, well, it's my dog's birthday and you're not invited, right? That's a subtext,
Mhm.
And so immediately Mike correctly identified, yeah, this person is just basically got other plans, probably with another guy, and wants to, keep me on the back burner. That shows that you're not her best option. And so boom, next, right? If you're not their best option, then you're more or less going to be risking wasting time, even if she did end up being a time waster. Because going back to the original question, right? The thing is that a lot of people I've noticed when they waste time, they mean well, right? They're not all just trying to be manipulative for selfish gains. A lot of times people waste your time thinking they're doing the right thing, thinking they're doing what they should be doing. But often they're not being effective. They're engaging in that mental masturbation, analysis paralysis, and they're ineffective people. Right. And that's the issue, is that it's like, if you're going to be working with people like this or dating people like this, and you're somebody that wants to get things done, if you deal with those people, they're always going to be a hindrance to you. They're always going to slow you down because they're going to be trying to shift gears back to a lower gear, and you're trying to go into high gear and actually move things along in life. Right. But a lot of people are comfortable where they are and they don't want to be outside their comfort zone. And that's also why a lot of times you'll get pushed back as a man. If you have these boundaries and standards and you're pushing back on that, they're going to shame you for, like, oh, why are you being such an asshole? And it's just like, because
It's like, oh, do you hate dogs? You must hate dogs.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, you don't respect my dog's birthday. Like, I just wanted to share it with him. And it's like, yeah, we get it.
Well, what's really good about that direct communication, about that mode 1 communication, is it's an excellent test of interest, because you're so clear with your communication that her response to that will be equally clear. She's either going to follow you or not, and this one wasn't following him, so it's like, okay, because all we're doing is testing for interest and testing a woman's ability to follow our lead. And if they and you're not going to force these chicks to do that. You're just seeing if they will naturally. If they don't, well, Mike, next that chick, right? It's pretty simple.
All right, real quick here, we got a super chat from Danny Arnold. If you could read this out for us, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, do it in Christopher Walken.
No, there's another voice that we have to do. Danny Arnold with the $5 super chat. Can we get a war horn for Mr. Arnold? Thank you, sir. We appreciate your support. She's gonna be a little late because she's saving Mr. Bigglesworth.
Well done, sir.
Thank you,
That's
Danny.
great.
Appreciate
That's
you, man.
great.
So yeah, we kind of bled into the second question, because the second question I had, because I wanted the first question to be more focused on kind of identify whether or not you yourself are engaged in this behavior. I know this is not really a common issue for a lot of guys on the panel, but for our audience, people that are trying to be here to learn and might be struggling with wasting time themselves, that's why I wanted the question to be partly focused. And this is just not just for men, this is for women, vice versa. Are you engaging in behaviors? Like, how would you identify if a behavior would be you wasting time, right? That you're looking.
Oh, I know
inward.
exactly. I have a great example of how I waste everyone's fucking time.
The super chats?
Not with the super chats. When I'm doing my show, sometimes you'll notice at the beginning, right? I usually open up and then I start, just sort of vamping about whatever is going on in my life and stuff, and I'm not getting to the topic. That's wasting everyone's time. No one shows up to your show because they want to hear what your fucking dog's up to and that you're giving her insulin and stuff, or
But what
whatever.
if it's their birthday?
Like yesterday I was talking about how I was supposed to go up to my family's field and everyone's injured, all this kind of stuff, and I'm just really wasting time trying to get past that 8-minute mark so I can start cussing, right? I'm wasting everyone's time there. But that's what I would say. That's what I do when I'm wasting people's time. I'm not getting to the topic.
My biggest fault is I like to live my life like a sitcom. I was sharing a story with my guys. So my internet went out this week, and I spent like 5+ hours on the phone with them, like on Tuesday, trying to get it figured out. We were going through so many different things. It got to the point where they put me on a priority wait list, but the version of the wait list they put me on was for elderly folk. So they're calling you all the time. And I started just merging these customer service reps together. It was like absolute nonsense. And then it got to the point where at 8:30 at night, I got my final call from them. And they had said, okay, they said, okay, so all you need to do is just go to the store and swap out your router and everything's going to be all good. And I'm like, okay, so like how late are the stores open till? And it's like, oh, well, they closed at 8. And I'm just like, oh my God. There was so much time wasting going on in their end there. But my point with this is that because I have ADHD, I love to interject and make things funny. So I end up saying things as soon as they come to my mind instead of, and that's something that I've worked on where I'm trying to get better every day at being, let the time to speak come to you instead of interjecting jokes or whatever else. Because if I'm bored in one of these hour-long meetings that's about nothing, it's hard for me not to make a joke.
But saying less than is necessary is a way to up that respect, and actually it works in the long run much better than being the jokester. You start to become that guy in the corner that when you talk, everybody shuts up. Now that's something that doesn't come overnight. You're going to have to go through that barrier of being the jokester and understand that puts you in a particular place where everybody's expecting that from you. Just don't become, a lot of jokesters end up, becoming, what did Alan Roger Curry call it? They become not the fakers, but the pretenders. Is it pretenders? Not even, they want to be good, but they, in the male version, I think the female version is called wholesome pretenders. They pretend to be one thing. So you're being this comedian, but if you want to get the respect, you're going to have to just understand the timing.
Yeah, I've noticed something similar to that, because I one of the observations I made is that there's a lot of people that end up being time wasters, and they, like I said, they mean well. They end up focusing so much on the perception rather than the reality that they lose touch with reality. Right? Those are the kind of people that if they say something and they make a mistake and you call them out on it, they're going to sit there and try to explain the mistake away rather than just be like, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Or just, stop it and move on. They'll sit there and try to convince you that, oh, there wasn't really a mistake here. I didn't really screw up, right? You guys are just putting this on me and I didn't really do that. And it's the ego defense kicking in. They're
that
so
actually
fixated
happened
on
at
their
work.
own
The
ego.
need to be right that is taken from sign language that has pervaded all aspects of our society. Sure.
That happened at work this week. I basically sometimes in IT you have like a segregation of duties where some people in one position are allowed to do things that the other people in the other position can't, and vice versa. So basically, this person needed access to something. I don't have the administrative authority to grant that access, and they needed access to two things to unlock the third access. If you give them one or the other, it doesn't work. You have to give them both, and it triggers number 3. So I sent the ticket to the group of people who can do both. I said, customer needs this and this. They sent it back to me. Done. I check. You only did one of them. And this happened overnight. So I checked the customer again. Only one was still applied. I send the ticket back. Such and such has not been applied. Please apply it. And then they sent the ticket back. It's like, no, they've had it this whole time. Don't fuck with the sysadmin, because the sysadmin has access to logs.
Yep. Logs, baby.
So I looked at the logs. They did not apply that second set of permissions to the customer until after I sent the ticket back to them, not when they initially worked on it. They lied to my frickin' face, and they thought they got away with it. Now, I'm a nice guy, and I don't want to be that guy, so I'm not writing an email to their manager telling them what they did, but I'm going to log that in the back of my head to never take that person seriously ever again.
Isn't that interference, though, with the core business? Potentially, there's some responsibility, accountability for that, right?
If they do it enough,
Okay.
but I don't, I don't want to be a unit.
So it reminds me of institutional time wasting that I saw happen in a corporation. Whereas, let's just say there is an operational unit that is responsible for doing function A, B, C, and D, and a unit that's working in function A, they're slow. And so, or they're too fast. And what it's doing is it's crowding up the end. They're getting work done too fast. I've seen the corporation come in and install a process that say, ahead of that unit B, just because there's bureaucracy involved, and it slows it down. So they're slowing down the production of unit B, just so that each unit can make their goals, and that elevates the director, instead of having one of them stand out. Because when one stands out, the perception is what? A lot of corporations and people believe perception is reality. That's not really true. But if it's a me society, they're going to hammer that down. I've actually watched them add bureaucracy into a pretty good system just to slow the production down so everybody gets good scores. And to me, that's corporate time wasting, manipulative at that.
Mm-hmm.
That's HR bullshit where they're trying to make everyone feel inclusive.
Could be.
They're like, oh, we don't want to. We have inclusivity training, and it's not necessarily about gender or sexual identity or race. It's about making the people that don't do that great on your team feel included by giving them more work. And you're like, well, the reason why I don't give them these tasks is because I need it done. And the company up here is giving us these unrealistic timelines. So I'm going to give this job to the guy that's going to fucking do the work. And they're like, oh, no. Give it to the guy that can't do the job because we want him to feel good about it. It's like, okay, well then don't give me these ridiculous timelines to meet. So, and then we can play little fucking footsie games. Okay.
That's actually crashing down in the corporation I'm thinking of right now. For the last 3 months, they have stopped hiring, and it looks like they're in the process of bringing in the consultants, the productivity consultants. So, you know what that
Sweet
means?
Baby Inc.
Yeah,
The Bobs. It's
a
the Bobs.
redesign. It means a redesign,
here's-
which means people are going to go away at some point.
Yep.
I have an example of where I've become a manipulative time waster on purpose just to fuck with some people. So I ran for city council back in 2017, and I still have that email account open.
Yeah.
I get those text scam emails that have the number. I call that number, and I totally mess with them just so they can't steal any money from grandma or grandpa. I purposely do that. Like, I'll put on a fake accent and be like, hey, I want to talk to the CEO of McAfee. Put him on the phone right now, CFO. And then I'll call. They'll realize I'm fucking with them. They'll hang up. And then I'll call them back, and then I'll start bringing out the derogatory terms for those text scammers for the area that they live in.
Yeah. That's fun. That's
So
a nice
I think it
hobby.
could be used for good in some cases.
And I have an example of where I did something wrong and I improved it. So, and it's very coincidental, Thor, that Modern Life Dating, John was there with you recently because he's the one who trained me out of it. It was when I'm getting coaching from someone, or they're guiding me or mentoring me or something, and they ask me a question, and I give them all this BS. So, like John would say, "Have you hit the gym yet?" I would say, "Well, money's kind of tight right now, and this and that." And by the time I was done training with John, he would ask me a question like, "Have you hit the gym yet?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm lazy." And so that helped me a lot. And so now when I deal with other coaches and mentors or peer groups, men in the space, I also communicate in a similar manner now. And it has remarkably improved my relationship with these men in this space. And it has also improved the effectiveness of any training and coaching that I receive.
Yes,
Oh, for
sir.
sure.
And that goes
Yeah,
back to
Ray-
one of the concepts that my own father taught me. He taught me the difference between the word reason and the word excuse, right? An excuse is something you do have control over, whereas a reason is something that you more than likely do not have control over, right? So if you, like, say, broke your legs, right, you probably couldn't go to the gym. That would be a reason, right? But if you're just not doing it because of, like you said, laziness, right, a lack of effort, then you just got to be like, well, that's an excuse. If I give any other reason, then I'm lazy, right? Because it's not really a reason, it's just an excuse then. So that's one of the things that I was very thankful to my father for clarifying for me, is just the basic word use, like a reason and excuse. One you have control over, one you don't, and if you identify that in yourself in a given moment, like, am I giving a reason? Do I have a valid reason, or is it an excuse? And that takes self-reflection. And I think that's a very good framework for sussing out that own bullshit within yourself.
Self-reflection and self-accountability. The concept of self-accountability, I learned it in the military, in boot camp. I had an RDC. He was a photographer's mate, PH1 Logan. He was the toughest son of a bitch I think I've ever met in my life. And one of the things that he taught us was hold yourself accountable. Don't give me the whole concept of excuses are like assholes. I say that a lot. I learned it from him and some of the other RDCs when I was in the Navy. And after that, I realized that really the difference between, like you said, Tarl, the difference between a reason and an excuse. And most people just have a boatload of excuses for not doing anything. I have a guy that I'm working with, and I'm trying to get him to go to the gym. And he'll be doing good. He'll be doing good for like 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden he'll fall off, and then I won't hear from him for 3 days. And then I'm like, and then he'll come back and do an exercise like like nothing happened. I'm like, where the fuck were you on Friday? And he's like, well, it was a hard week, and da 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 da. And I'm like, look, all this shit is excuses. Like you figure out how to make it to work every day. I was like, you didn't go to the gym because you had a headache, but you went to work that day. Why? There's no reason why you couldn't have gone to the gym too and just pushed through it. Maybe you don't lift as heavy when you have your headache or whatever. Maybe take a fucking aspirin and then go to the gym. But what you're saying here is a fucking excuse.
That's why one of the things I tell guys as well is, like, make changes, not excuses, right? A lot of times, like Mike said, like Mike is his example, you end up wasting so much time. All that time that you spent giving excuses could have been spent making changes to affect change in your life. And a lot of guys don't even realize that, because they're so, like, this is the biggest flaw I see in a lot of people right now, is that they're so focused on everything around them, how fucked up the world is, this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of it is hyperbolic and bullshit, right? I was on another panel a couple of days ago talking about, like, the narratives that you dislike. And one of the narratives I disliked was that the idea that the world is worse than it's ever been and everything's going to end and it's all doom and gloom, when I don't see that's the case, right? I live, as a man right now, I live like an emperor in like 100 years ago, right? I've got, good, hot, cold running water, food, family, like good friends, right? And I don't have issues that other people had even just 50 to 100 years ago. Right, I live an exceptionally good life despite, how much of a minimalist I am.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's everybody here in the last couple of hosts said accountability. So in terms of manipulative time wasting, I can see it now because it's really popular with trad cons and a lot of shows to say, hold these whores accountable. No, it's shame these whores, which
Shame
the
these
sound drop.
whores.
so we like to run around on our high horse and say we have to hold people accountable. We? Who is we? Society, the trad cons, religion. That is a complete fallacy. There is no holding anybody accountable ever outside of yourself. So
Yes, sir.
in order to hold yourself accountable, so manipulative time wasters don't hit you. Now, trad cons will come back at me and say it's our responsibility and it's our moral high ground from our religion that we must, hold society accountable. And they will actually lobby to pass laws to create force, which is up to the use of deadly force in order to enforce what they think they should have out there. So they're holding society accountable. But really, in reality, the only thing you can hold accountable is your own thoughts. That's it. Self-determination, right? So now that you know that and you want to deal with your own time wasting, how would you do it? What is the number one solution to time wasting? There's one. It's in my book. There's only one. It just happens to work everywhere in life. Even if you're depressed, if you do this one thing, it's going to help you. And I want to get your guys' flavor on it. It is called, when you run into this and recognize time wasting from yourself or even other people, such as a manipulative time waster as a woman, or if you find the desire to hold somebody accountable that's not you or even you, only this one thing will cure it all. It's called taking action. You must take action. And that's something only you can do. And if you have self-determination, which is all you have, is what you have between your ears, you take an action, whatever it is. If you messed up and a time waster cost you a lot of money, you know what? You look at the situation. Can you hold them accountable? If you can legally, take the action. If you can't, and it's only a perception, go for a damn Tough Mudder run, because you're going to need to burn that energy off and not carry that burden with you. What say you, Paul?
Yeah. I'm definitely on board with running Tough Mudders.
I'd say with the take action, also our good friend Sam Chansky, his little quote helps you get rid of the time wasting on the internet with realizing that everything is fake, and I can't say the other word because we'll all get monetized.
It all is fake, and interesting enough, it's best case scenario, it's pretending, adult pretending, or maybe not even that far, because the maturity level's mostly not adult at all.
Oh yeah. I would say with taking action, like one of the things that I think scares people and holds them back is that action, that first action, it doesn't necessarily have to be something big. Like when we even talk about like going to the gym and having the discipline, like you can go for 10 minutes, you can go for 20 minutes, but go every day or whatever is on your schedule, because that builds a habit. Yeah. And then you can grow that habit. But without even just doing the small things, like don't look at it as like, oh, I have to do like 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. Like, no, you don't. And just, it's the small actions that start that cycle and get the ball moving.
Huds, did you read Atomic Habits?
I did. And I actually use
that's directly out of Atomic Habits.
Yep. And so I use Atomic Habits with some of my coaching clients as well, because I find that it's very helpful to connect with them and for them to get toward, or at least start moving towards the destination they want to get to.
Yeah, that's one of those.
Psycho-cybernetics.
Say again?
Sorry, I said have them read after they do Atomic Habits. Have them read Psycho-cybernetics.
Okay.
I would agree.
Interesting. I'm gonna look
at
that.
a good one.
I would toss it over to Paul, because there's another thing you can do after you take action is to express an attitude of gratitude. This will change manipulative time wasters' view of you, at least temporarily. I'm not talking about holding yourself accountable, but it's funny. I watch some folks that are railing against society and holding society accountable, and they don't have any gratitude at all for society. Wanting to change things, and having those attitudes, it just doesn't work. But it probably makes them feel better by venting.
Well, that's that negative cognitive bias that humans all have, right? We pay attention to the negatives more than the positives, and
Yeah.
then we try to focus on controlling other people, because then when the tradcons, as an example you gave, Thor, tell like, oh, we need to hold others accountable, it means that you can focus on them rather than focusing on keeping your own house clean, like the Jordan Peterson quote, clean your own
Bingo.
room before you try to change the world. And just like in the Huds example, right? A lot of people will put up these barriers in front of themselves. They will construct their own excuses to prevent them and make the problem seem bigger than it is, right? They'll put a mountain up in front of themselves, and rather than tell themselves I can overcome this obstacle or get around it, they will just simply be like, well, I'm just going to give up. Why even try? Right? If I weigh 250 pounds, how am I, that's a lot of weight to lose. How am I going to ever do that? I'd have to make too many changes and go to the gym and blah, blah, blah. They'll manufacture excuses. And it always comes back to one of the things I learned from MLD's mastermind: control the controllables. You're the number one controllable. Right? And that's where a lot of people get fucked up, and they end up becoming their own manipulative time waster, and they won't even realize it. They'll think they're doing just fine, and they'll make all those excuses like, I can't do it. But like Hud said, you just got to start plucking away at it. You see people that escape from prison do this all the time, right? They'll get like a just a little piece of something, and they'll just dig away a little bit at a time, and eventually they'll get through that wall. If you apply that same mentality, like you're trying to escape from the prison you built, you will get through that wall, and you will be not trapped inside that box you've built for yourself anymore. But you got to chisel away at it. You got to chip away at it. Yes, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. But if you do the work, it will pay off. You just got to stick with it.
That's the difference between discipline and motivation too. Because if you really want to get out of that prison, it's like, how bad do you want what you want? How bad do you want it? Because if you really want it enough, you're going to figure out how to do it. It doesn't matter how you're feeling that day. I'm sure the guys in prison are they don't want to sit there, and they're not motivated to dig out, but they are like, I'm getting out of here. I'm disciplined. I'm going to do a little bit of this every day. And it's the same thing. You got to figure out that you just got to do the things you need to do, and do it anyway, whether you're feeling it or not. you know?
It's one of the first things I'll confront guys on when they start giving me those laundry lists of excuses. I'll just be like, oh, you clearly don't want it bad enough, so we can move on. And they'll be like, no, wait, I really wanted help. And I'm just like, do you really though? Because right now, all I'm hearing is wah, wah, wah.
Some of that's habit and the need to vent it out because of the frustration.
You know what? You know what I learned studying NLP though, is that excuses that people give themselves, they will believe it, right? So if you can talk to them in a way where they make excuses for why they want to do something, and they start convincing themselves that they need to have this end result, they will start doing the work, right? So you ask them, well, you want to lose weight, huh? Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you want it? Right. And then they no matter what number they give them, you go, wow, why did you rate it so high? And then they'll say, well, what do you mean? I didn't think that was high. Most people rate it way lower than that. Why do you want it so bad? And
Machiavellianism.
So then they'll start coming up with excuses. Well, I want it because of this, and I want it because of this. And you'd be like, okay, all right, go on, and then they'll sit there and convince themselves why they need to make these changes. And because they're saying it to themselves, they'll believe it and they'll act on it, or they're more likely to act on it. I'll say.
Good point. Yeah. You'd use a little bit of reverse psychology on them, get them to get their bad habit to work for them rather than against them.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. So yeah, both. So the second question was actually going to be how to identify manipulative and maybe passive aggressive, time wasting individuals. The behaviors and things like that. But we kind of bled right into that, because the panel is like right along the same mindset as me. So I love it, guys. So we kind of covered both questions more or less already. And going back to, what my framework is, like I said, I try to identify individuals that have that abundance mindset and that outcome independence, right? That's how I try to identify my time wasting. Am I being outcome dependent or outcome independent in a situation, right? Am I exercising from an abundance mindset that I can, or am I telling myself I can't? Because it's like that quote from Henry Ford, whether believe you can or you can't, I'm paraphrasing, both are true, right? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's just like, yeah, things aren't easy when you want to get something done, but the idea that you can't will stop you. You miss every shot you don't take, right? You have to practice, you have to improve, you have to get better if you actually want to hit shots. Everything you're going to do is going to suck when you start out. Very few of us have like a natural talent for something where we're just like a savant right out the gate, right? You have to actually suffer to improve, right? You have to be embarrassed to win. You know, you're not going to, cross the finish line on your first race. You're probably going to get your ass handed to you and be like 8th place, even if you do well, right? If you're racing, with like 30 motherfuckers, right? Even if you place high, which would still be an accomplishment, you're not going to win first place. But if you let yourself get caught up in that mindset, then you're just going to be like a black pill motherfucker. Like, well, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Why even try? And you've already defeated yourself. Nobody has to beat you or hold you down. You're holding yourself down. You've got the boot on your own neck.
Yeah,
the
good
black pill's
example
kind
of
of
that
the
is,
ultimate time waste.
Like a good example of that, Charles, was the other day. I was at the dojo doing kickboxing class. I'm at a level where I can spar with actual UFC fighters. We got a couple there. One's a coach and one's extra training. I took a left knee to the liver from Victor Alemano, or how you say his last name. Currently flyweight in the UFC, or bantamweight in the UFC. I got back up after resting for a bit and sparred one more round and went and did a BJJ right afterwards, and I'll go back next week. Most normal people wouldn't even have the opportunity, one, to fight him on a sparring level, two, get up after a liver shot like that.
Yeah. Well, liver shot's a good learning experience, right? I went through that stuff. I went through the blood chokes and stuff like that just to experience it, because if that happens to you in real life, most people don't know. Like, that's a good point about the liver shot. If you get hit in the liver, you have to lay down to level out your blood pressure. Otherwise, you can literally die, right? So you're going down no matter what, and you have to be down for at least a few seconds to level everything out.
Yeah, honestly, it's worse than getting hit in the nuts.
Yep. For sure. Like I said, because there is no option. At the nuts, it hurts, but you can, power through it. You can pull the Wolverine and just, I've done this before. I'm doing extreme sports. I've been hitting the nuts plenty of times. Like, my friends were actually surprised when I had a kid, because they're like, there's no way this dude isn't sterile. Right? Because I've been, had people kick me. I've been fucking punched. I've, landed on my bike after completely blown out the back axle on a 10-foot quarter pipe, and landed straight on my left testicle. Like, that shit was painful, but I could power through it. Liver shot? Yeah. No, you have to take a little bit of a nap.
Yeah, it's like most people would be, well, I got hit in the liver, I'm not ever going back. I'm like, nope, I'm going back because I want to get better. The guy's got 10 years more fighting experience than I am, but I'm at least fortunate enough and happy with myself enough that I can get in the ring and fight and like at least land blows with a guy who's actually fighting at that level.
Yeah, and a winner's going to think about, like, okay, so I got hit in the liver. How do I develop defense against a liver shot? How do I learn to keep myself from taking those sort of hits, right? Because that's going to do you much better than, like, oh, I'm just going to avoid it, right? You can't avoid all battles in life, right? And if you don't know how to defend against a deficiency, then you're going to get your ass handed to you.
Yeah, and you never really get better at any skill by like, let's say sparring people below you all the time. Mm-hmm. You only get better by working with people that have gone before you and they're a little bit better than you that you can learn from. Otherwise, you're never gonna grow.
Case in point with that one right there, Paul, was the week before. James Vick, who is the coach, former UFC welterweight, 6'3". I finally was landing blows to his face with right overhand hooks. He got pissed off, and he's 6'3", gets the clinch right in, right to the liver. So I got to start defending the liver better.
Both of the guys are just going straight for your liver. They're like, this guy never covers his liver. Let's just fuck him up.
And then watching James spar again against other guys, I'm like realizing he's gonna go for that knee. I gotta get my right elbow down to block the liver and throw the left uppercut.
Yep. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. All right, so we like I said, the questions are all kind of bleeding. I had some pretty structured stuff here, but the panel's so on top of things. We're just like going in right for the kill, right? So I think now would probably be a good time. We're coming up on the hour mark. We will run a quick ad here for Thor's book. So sit tight, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Masculinity is in crisis. What are we to do? We need to acquire a dominant masculine presence. Now available on Amazon. Masculinity is in crisis. Men's masculine behaviors and traits have been suppressed by popular culture. Why has it become so popular to shame, guilt, insult, masculinity, and masculine behaviors? After 50 to 70 years of this has resulted in a very large subset of men who have become weak, useless, and crisis. Pathetic state for boys and men that leads to depression and violent despair. A dominant masculine presence addresses this very dilemma for the individual man, and it firmly establishes why this is what is desperately needed by the individual man today. In this book, clearly defined masculine traits and behaviors and the emotional durability provided by traditional masculinity are presented as a guide to what every man should embed into his identity. Putting these principles and behaviors into practice will motivate and direct your path step to step to create for yourself an authentic, dominant masculine presence.
Yes, sir.
And in Thor's book, you can learn all about taking action as a way to avoid being a time waster or letting others waste your time.
Yes, sir.
Great book.
That basic principle comes back to what I always say that I learned from the trades: measure twice, cut once. Right? You got to learn, you got to double check your work, and then you got to take an action. And then if you fuck it up, you got to go back to the drawing board. Use scientific method, rinse, repeat. Correct the mistakes and do what actually works. So that's a pretty good basic framework that I find, it's very simplistic. It's like a lot of people want simple answers, but the simple answers are technically out there. A lot of people just don't really want to accept them because it's not a convenient excuse. So, and that's quite unfortunate these days, but that's why I, talk to a lot of the people that I do now and deal with a lot of the people that I do, is because you all are gentlemen that I've seen will take that action. You will seek to improve. Right. And if somebody you can trust says, hey, you're fucking up here, because some people, that's another thing about the manipulative time wasters. A lot of times people just like to poke holes. Right. That's one of the things that I've noticed, is that they'll sit there and try to shame you and say that you're screwing up. But the thing is that you're just calling out their manipulative time waste. And one of the issues I've had at pretty much every job I've ever worked at is I'm that guy that people ask to do stuff because I'm getting stuff done. And so they're just like, well, let me, and I'll do all the dirty jobs that other people don't want to do. And I'll do it well. And I'll do it with a smile on my face, not necessarily because I like it, but because I know it needs to be done. And I understand the value of hard work and being task orientated, so I've always had an issue with people like, well, you're making me look bad. Right. That's one of the issues with manipulative time wasters, is that by being effective, you have to kind of watch your ass, because people are going to start, talking shit about you because you're making them look bad. And they may not even realize that they're doing this. They just do it reflexively as a way to keep the status quo.
Well, that's because they've been trained in sign language. We all know that that's kind of the norm these days. And it's resulted in really combative communication between people. But yeah, for sure. That need to be right, and it starts with the shame. I mean, people do this on purpose and think they're communicating with each other. That's a form of manipulative time wasting.
Yeah, well, and that's why I always ask people, do you want to be right or do you want to win? Because everybody wants to be right and win, but you can't be both, right? That's the issue, is that if you think you're right all the time, you're wrong somewhere and you don't know where. You haven't looked inward to look at yourself and know thyself, and you don't realize the mistakes that you're making. That's the biggest thing that I see is leading to a lot of people's own downfalls, is that they're so outwardly focused. They never focus within. The only things they focus on, right? It's kind of funny because they'll focus on all the negatives outwardly, right? But then they'll only focus on the positives inwardly, right? Oh, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. And they'll overinflate their ego. It's that ego defense, right? Your ego is your own worst enemy. And if you don't check your ego, who else is going to check your ego? You're the only one that can check your own ego. And that's where I see a lot of men get it twisted. You see guys in the RP space, they get stuck in the RP rage, right? Why? Because they're outcome dependent and they want to blame everybody else. And rather than addressing their own shortcomings and dealing with people, dealing with women, dealing with men and their communication style. Because, once again, like what we say on the Fresh and Fit podcast, the one power you have as a man is to walk away. Right. It's the same thing with a lot of these confrontational situations. Sometimes you just need to remove yourself from the situation. And that's how you prevent from wasting your own time. Because if you identify somebody as a time waster and you keep playing into that, thinking that you're going to get an outcome, you've now become outcome dependent, even if you didn't start out that way. You're trying to change their mind, but then you're not changing your own mind. You have to identify, hey, because this goes back to my last question here. How do you deal with such individuals once you identify them, right? You know, the succubuses, you know, the sinister motherfuckers. Like, how do you choose to deal with these sort of people? Because that really does matter. The actions or inactions, because sometimes not doing anything is also an action, right?
So
not
frame boundary
responding is
probably
important
the most
too.
important. Yeah, being able to draw frame boundaries with everybody, and that's probably one of the most important things. Is you just don't make it a part of your engagement with people.
Yeah, we talked about this a little at the beginning. When you identify them, you remove your time and attention.
Mhm.
And one of the things that Alan Roger Curry pointed out to me that I had never thought of before until I read his books and talked to him was that women look at men who give away our time and attention away freely the same way men look at women who give away sex too easily. They look at us like we're whores. We're tricks, you know.
Man whore.
And so if a woman is just wasting your time and egging you on, and a lot of guys are like, oh, these women are leading me on. No, you're letting them lead you on. Their actions are telling you everything you need to know. So you just don't engage with that sort of thing. You know, you cut that shit loose and move on to another woman. But a lot of these guys, they have a scarcity mindset when it comes to women. And they're like, okay, I got to try to make this girl like me. No, you don't have to fucking try to make her like you. Find a woman that already likes you. and spend time with those chicks. You know?
And I'll give you guys a big clue that you can all use, everybody that's listening here too, when it comes to suspecting manipulative time wasting. You ever ask yourself this question? Oh, I'm getting mixed signals from her. Guess what? You're involved with one of two. I mean, you're basically involved with a manipulative time waster at that point, at least for that period of time.
Yeah, because her actions and her words aren't congruent. So you just ignore her words and watch her actions, because her actions will never lie to you.
There are no mixed signals.
Yeah.
I think Thor mentioned it earlier in the beginning of the show about cluster Bs, and this works for anybody, but definitely for cluster Bs, because back to the saga of Deanna, my ex-fiance. After I broke up with her, I watched a lot of Sam Vaknin, who wrote most of the literature on cluster Bs that the DSM uses today. Guy is actually diagnosed himself both MPD and BPD, but he brings up, and it works very well for guys who don't have kids with any women, and there's a little modified version of it for guys that do have kids, because we're talking about women here. You just freaking block them on everything. Just cold block them. Now, if you do have kids and you have to maintain that parental stuff, they call it gray rocking, where you pretty much just use broken record or any of the assertive techniques that you learn from When I Say No, I Feel Guilty to deal with those people. And you can gray rock even at work. So you got that coworker that's a manipulative time waster, you gray rock them. So that's a good term to look up. And the doctor again is Dr. Sam Vaknin.
Yeah.
That's a great point, because I've done a lot of research on BPD in particular when it comes to like the cluster Bs, and I was even just reading something again on Reddit, because it's the same story every single time. If you're giving attention to it, then it's going to fuel it. That's what they're looking for. They need
that narcissistic fuel. All cluster Bs have the same thing.
And that's what gray rock is essentially like not giving attention where attention is not due, and not reacting where a reaction is not due.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, because I tell guys this all the time, when they get into these back and forths, these circular logic going round and round the merry-go-round. You know, that's one of the things that I notice, like with a lot of time wasters, is that you'll say something and they will act like they didn't get it, and they'll just go around the circle again, and they'll just keep going round and round.
It's like they're having a conversation with
cycle.
themselves.
Yeah, and the thing is that anything you do, even if you like give a reaction emoji, all of a sudden they'll just start going again, right? It's just any little spark will set them off and add that fuel to the fire. And that's why removing your attention is so important in a lot of these situations, because any little bit of fuel will add to that fire, and boom, you've got an out of control blaze, and then you're sitting there going like, well, why is the fire burning so hot? A lot of people move themselves.
That's actually good for engagement, though. So that's where I'm being a manipulative time waster, is when people are trying to argue with me and goat me into an argument on social media, and I'm not really giving them anything, and I'm just like, I just repeat back what they say with a question mark, and just.
Well, that's the assertiveness that I was talking about. That's part of gray rock right there.
Yeah. It's
Well,
just fun. It's just
that's an old troll tactic, right? Because I'm old school internet motherfucker, right? I'm the guy that was on the internet back in the day, and I was taught by some high IQ trolls, and they said the entire point of trolling is to do the least amount of effort to get the maximum emotional response, right? So if, and once again, understand the principle that it's laid out about any little spark will set off that fire, right? So you can weaponize it to your favor. If you realize you're dealing with somebody like this, you can do what Paul said, right? And just, you just be like, really? And that's all, and they'll immediately go like, and you can get them all in a tirade. And when you're doing social media engagement, that's what a lot of people do. They'll put something out there that's divisive, and you can farm engagement very easy with how divisive people are. Most people just fall into that trap willingly. They'll walk right into the punji sticks
Until they flag
Shout
you
out
for
to Jack
engagement
Napier.
farming
Communication.
yeah, and until they give you a community notes on fucking
and demonetize the whole damn post.
Yeah,
You weaponize
20
misogyny, Paul.
million views. 20 million.
Hey, internet, Garjo is mid.
yeah.
Well, that is one of the
She
risks
is
of playing
now.
with fire, is that if you play with fire long enough, you will get burned, right? So you got to always remember that. I call it, I teach my son this, the law of diminishing returns, right? When he's goofing off with, like, when we were out at grandma's last time, I was letting him play with the hatchet, right? And I told him, like, the law of diminishing returns, and I taught him how to use it correctly and all that stuff, right? But I told him, like, you got to take a break sometimes. You got to shift gears. Because the thing is, when you do the same thing over and over again, you will make mistakes. The idea is you practice, and then you take a break so the brain can compute and recalibrate, right? And it's just like when you're goofing off as kids, when you're, horseplay and whatnot, right? I was always taught, it's always fun until somebody loses an eye. And I learned that the key thing is you goof off, and then when you realize you've kind of reached, you can always feel that point of diminishing returns if you pay attention. A lot of people ignore it, right? When there's such a thing as too much fun, and fun doesn't last forever. So when you realize you've gotten a good amount of fulfillment, you've had your fun, step back, shift gears, and do something else, right? The only time you should be like pushing through is in examples like before, like when, like, why didn't you go to the gym after work? Oh, I had a headache, right? That's one of those examples of where you should push through, right? But once again, there are certain times where you have to understand the inverse, right? You have to, switch it up and go like, well, I need to step away from this and recalibrate. And that's one of those nuanced things where that's the tightrope balance that I talk about all the time, right? If you have to move forward slowly, steadily, constantly, and you got to bob back and forth, left and right, and maintain that balance. And if you don't maintain that forward momentum and you don't maintain that even keel balance, you will fall off to your own doom. And that's the tightrope of life that I describe. A lot of people struggle with that.
And what you're saying, I actually resonate with a lot, because I enjoy gambling as one of my hobbies. And I see this with gambling all the time. And I even experience it myself, that point of diminishing returns. You may be winning, but why is it that everybody, or even with the lottery, when somebody wins the lottery, how come the majority of people that win the lottery end up completely broke?
Because they were bad with money because they were playing the lottery.
Yep, money's just an amplifier.
Well, yeah, but it's like if you're playing a game and you're winning, and then you win really big, but then you keep going, eventually you got to take that break. You got to switch it up. I think that that's a really, really good point that you're making, Charles.
Yes, sir.
The house always wins. That's why you
Exactly.
eventually need to know when to walk away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the lottery, the state is the house.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, the house is reality. Like I said, if you reality is going to slap you in the face whether you ignore it or not. But yeah, we got another super chat in here. If you could read this off for us, Mike.
Thank you, Dark Knight Dev, for the $2 super chat. Somebody sound drop.
Here, let me get it.
Thank you very much for the support. You're not all pay if you haven't taken a body shot. Lol.
Thank you for that, boys.
Thanks, Dark Knight Dev. It's been 2 days and it still hurt.
I think that's exactly how Christopher Walken would say LOL.
LOL.
Yep, sounds about right to me. So yeah, I mean, I know this may not have been like a longer episode here, but I mean, I'd say we pretty much covered it. If anybody else has anything they want to add about identifying, dealing with manipulative time wasters, now would be the time.
Rich Cooper has a chapter in his book, The Unplugged Alpha, that is specifically for, and I think it's called Vampire Time Wasters or something along those lines. That was actually very good. And I actually ejected myself from a guy who I was really close with. He gave me my dog. I don't hang out with him anymore because his girlfriend is one of those vampiric manipulative time wasters. I ejected from that relationship. I don't even go to his house. Like, I have an open invite to his house at any time. I'm like, no.
Wasn't that chapter more on avoiding the unhappy and the unlucky?
I think he mentions it in there in the beginning of that chapter, but that chapter is just like dealing with the succubi.
Yeah, because the unhappy and the unlucky, I mean, that's one of the 48 laws of power. And you'll find that people that are just constantly miserable, always have bad luck, everything sucks. That will just drain you mentally and emotionally, just being with negative ass people in general. And a lot of those people will waste your fucking time because they'll just sit there and complain and bitch and stuff and not do anything about it, which goes to making excuses, which we've talked about today.
Yes, sir.
Like, it was so bad at one time before I stopped hanging out with him. Like, he was over at my house for a barbecue, and she threatened to kill herself because he didn't tell her that he was over at my place. That's how bad it was. I'm like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not dealing with her. I love you, bro, but until you guys break up, call me if you want to chat. But
yeah, well, and that's one of the concepts that Fresh and Fit talks about how they don't deal with guys that don't have frame with women. Right? Because if you're going to do business with those guys, you got to understand you're not doing business with the guy, you're doing business with his crazy woman, right? And she's going to be running the business into the ground if you're trying to deal with them. It's the same thing with guys that have drug and alcohol problems, right? If they have those bad habits, they're going to be the kind of people that you don't want to deal with. That's why I have that simplistic framework of outcome independence and abundance mindset, because if I identify somebody has that, they're going to be less likely to be that deep into drugs and alcohol, to not be simping for their woman and having that scarcity mindset, and that, I find that to be a very useful framework now when I'm dealing with people, right? Because even if I'm going to go into the den, like, I can know who the players are, right? I'm reading the room and I can see, oh, this person's a time waster. So I know to take them less seriously than somebody that would actually be worth taking seriously, right? So I can see who the real businessmen, who the real effective mindsets are versus the ineffective mindsets. And I want effective mindsets on my Dragonship, right? I don't want people that are just going to be, puttering about doing busy work, because nothing ever gets done then. Right. And they'll sit there and whine and complain about how nothing ever gets done while not doing anything. And that shit boggles my mind. But I understand that not everybody has that mindset. And many more people don't even want to adopt that mindset. Right. They don't want to get out of that pitfall they're in. They just want you. That's what they say. Misery loves company. Crabs in a barrel. They want company in the jail cell. Right? They're mad at you because you're outside the jail cell. And they're like, come on in. I won't close the door behind you. I swear. So you got to be very wary of that. And that's why, I love this topic when I saw it on Thor's list, because like I said, this is something that I've been teaching guys with Fresh and Fit for fucking years now. I'm just like, these are all hard lessons I had to learn. I used to be a manipulative time waster because I thought it was the right thing. I used to have a bunch of friends that were manipulative time wasters because I thought it was the right thing. Oh no, we want to change the world, man. We want people to do better. But when you focus on everybody else, you neglect yourself.
This is true. And I think the hardest thing that everybody has to learn is, when things are not aligning, or you think that a conversation, whatever topic is done and handled, and then they keep looping it around, understand you need to walk away.
There's a reason why Nuke says on X.
Say again?
Sorry, Heads, go ahead. I was going to say, there's a reason why Nuke says on X all the time, what's your plan?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
Instead of letting them pull you into a cycle, walk away. It's the hardest thing to learn when it comes to maturity, but it will be the best thing in the world that you ever do for yourself.
Yep. Yeah. And guys, everyone watching, I posted the link to Grey Rocking in the chat, so you can read up on it if you'd like.
Oh, definitely. It's a godsend. Grey Rocking and just straight up cold block as well, if you can. That's like the ideal, but once again, like I was saying earlier, some of the guys have children with some of the women who wasted their time, so they kind of can't, parental reasons. Or if you're at work, you kind of can't just ignore your coworker, or your boss.
Yep. Well, this is another one of those Viking wisdoms that my father taught me about, dealing, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to, like you, AJ, right? You cut off your friend because he's dealing with a time waster. And you know that she's got him sucked in, and then he's going to suck you in too if you let him, right? He's gonna create that chain. And a lot of people don't want to cut those sort of people off in their life. That's one of the hardest things they can do. And my father asked me something when it came to survival when I was young that stuck with me, right? And that was, if you had to, could you amputate your own limb? If you had to, could you amputate a friend or family member's limb? Right? See, that's another thing that a lot of people don't really think about. And I know that's harsh terms to put it in for a lot of people, but it really kind of drives the point home. Do you actually have what it takes to be able to survive? Right? A lot of people don't have that survival mentality of like, am I going to do the dirty business that needs to be done, the harsh, uncomfortable truth? Am I going to engage with that in order to survive and thrive? Or am I going to hang on to that gangrenous limb and let it kill me from the inside?
And that's kind of where I was when I left my ex. Literally, it was at that point. I'm like, do I want to continue to be miserable while I'm starting to learn this RP knowledge? Or do I want to be happy and thrive at life? And when that January 4th day and that fight happened, and she left the morning of the January 5th, I'm like, everything just like lifted off my chest. I'm like, thank fucking God.
Yes, sir.
It's done.
All right. So final thoughts, go around the horn. We'll start with you, Paul.
Yeah, man. A lot of the stuff in the space comes down to exactly what you're talking about, Tarl, is letting go of attachment to outcome, actions over words. A lot of it comes down to awareness of yourself and being able to be aware of other people's actions. It's not that hard, but it does take some effort and some practice in learning some of this stuff, other than that, guys, tune into the podcast Monday. I'm continuing my series on the Book of Puck. We are going to go through his chapter on killing, killing being a dependence or whatever, right? Like basically not being a needy little bitch. And guys, do get an autographed copy of my book. There's only one special edition left. Only one. And once it's gone, it's gone. So you can get those. I'll drop a link in the chat here. All right. Let's see. You want to go with AJ now?
Yeah, AJ, final thoughts.
Before you do that, go ahead and highlight this. He does autograph it, and it is nice, and this is a solid book. Every man should have this. That's all I want to say. Go ahead, you can switch to AJ.
It is a good book. One of my first reviews doing live stream and doing book reviews is actually both Thor and Paul's books. I just did a frame by Ryan Stone. Dread is next up for when I do a live stream, but I'm going to kind of come back a little bit off the live stream, except for Dragonship and when Vince has me on Masculine Geek, so I can focus on my qualification for my promotion here next month or at the end of this month. But I think we hit this on the head pretty well. Again, I'll reiterate, the Gray Rock is going to be your best friend, whether you're dealing with family, coworkers, or parental stuff. If you can, just remove yourself. As we always say in the Red Pill, time, attention, like those are your greatest resources. You can remove them as necessary to deal with what you want. And then I kind of talked about this in Beer Club the other day when we were talking about frame itself and like dealing with chicks. Like if a chick wants to commit to me, she's got to bring it up to me first. But I'm going to tell her, hey, I have a goal in mind. You can tag along for the ride. If not, no hard feelings. Just don't waste my freaking time while I'm trying to live the life I want to live.
All right, Huds.
Absolutely. So I think that I'm going to pull back to something that Thor had said earlier. Saying less is more. And truly, when you learn that, and that's, a piece of that stoicism and also gray rocking, you can regain some of the power in some of these situations, and you don't waste your own time. You don't allow those manipulative time wasters to waste your time by doing so. Now, one thing I do want to share with everybody, this is a very very new thing, but I'm excited. I've built out the team, and we are going to be offering a 8-week coaching program that I'll do like a formal announcement on. But if you guys have ever been thinking about how to like really conquer dating, especially today in your own life, definitely look out for that, because this is going to be comprehensive. It's going to bring you all the way through. We're going to hold your hand, and we're going to make you successful. So definitely keep an eye on that. Again, as always, best way to reach out to me is on Instagram right here at the Hudsman.
Sir. All right, Mike, you're up next.
Thank you very much. Guys, you can find me on Instagram at Mike Steele Vegas. That's where everything's fairly uplifting and positive. Celebrities, food, general photography. X is where I raw dog the internet. So follow me on X at your own risk. You have been warned. Time wasters. Basically, it comes from confidence, and confidence comes from options, and options comes from competence. So, you know, whether it's a gal like not getting on your program and trying to waste your time, you don't have to let her waste your time, because you got another gal you can talk to who's not a time waster. When it comes to getting interviewed for a job, it's like what they've always said: it's easier to find a job when you have one. So, jobs coming at you, if you already have a job and you like it to some extent. This one comes at you, I don't like the company, go away. Oh, this one comes at you, I don't like the pay, go away. Not literally, don't do that. You want to be professional. But up in here, you can be like, nah, you're not good enough for me. Don't waste my time. Shoot. And so that all develops and comes with time as you level up in your career, in your life, in your love life, etc., 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 and level up in here. Because this comes first. If you don't level up this, everything around you is not going to level up either. So be mindful of that.
Yes, sir. Yep. As I always ask people, I ask them, do you want to be right or do you want to win? A lot of people just want to be right. But the thing is, just being right doesn't mean you're going to get the win. You know, that's a mistake that I made for many years, and I had to turn my sight inwardly to look at myself and be honest. Like, do I want to keep being a fat ass? No. Right. It was actually a full credit to MLD. One day he was like yelling at the camera on his stream, like, look, if you're sick of being a fat ass, just stop being a fucking fat ass, and, download my free course and do that shit for 3 months. It will fucking work. And if not, I'll refund you your $0 when you get back to me. Right. And that shit did finally wake my dumb ass up. And I realized I'm the problem. Right. And I started asking myself the question, do I want to be right or do I want to win? And I decided I'd rather win than be right. So I started to look to people that had already made a lot of the mistakes. I started to look to their wisdom, right? I don't know everything. I've been called a know-it-all all my life because I'm a knowledge hoarder. So I know a ton of shit, and very few people can make me learn something new. So I look for the guys that know shit that I don't, so that way I can fill in those gaps. And that's how I'm winning at life, and why I've developed happiness and contentment rather than just being comfortable. Right? A lot of people are so comfortable that they're miserable. And that's an irony that I think is hilarious, but it's not something that I want for myself any longer. So just ask yourself, whenever you're dealing with a problem, and or even if you're not, you think you got all the answers, ask yourself, just entertain it for a little bit. Do I want to be right or do I want to win? And if you decide you want to win, look for people who have done the shit you want to do and find out how they did it. Right? That's the solution that you need, is somebody who's actually already done that shit. And even if they don't do it the way that you would do it, knowing their framework will help you win, right? Just like AJ is sparring with MMA guys that know way more about him and are taking advantage of his ignorance of how to guard against the liver shot to teach him, right? They're not going to tell him, oh, you're bad at guarding your liver. They're going to show him that he's bad at guarding his liver and make him pay for it. And that lesson is going to be far more valuable than... then they know, oh, if I liver shot this guy, he might quit. But if he quits, that proves that he's never going to learn. And that's how they're dealing with time wasters. They're like, well, if he could get back up and come back for more to figure out how to guard against it, That's somebody who's demonstrated through action that they actually want to learn. And that's what I look for on my teams. I look for people that take action, even if they think they're going to make a mistake, because they want to get the result and they're willing to learn, adapt, and win. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. Appreciate you all. See, I'll drop my my link in the chat for my channel because I'm trying to get my YouTube numbers up right now so I can get monetized potentially. So
Don't forget,
that's my channel.
Don't forget this comment from Elena. We have a super chat from her.
Oh, we do? Okay, I missed that.
It's like a membership thing, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but Mike, you want to read that one? I'll give her a shame these whores.
Yes.
Shame this horse.
Elena's Bar Fitness member for 10 months. Thank you for the consistent support, Elena. Always a friend of the show and Shield Maiden. Let's see here. We'll just do a regular for this one because we respect Elena. Great show. Not reacting to the irrational behavior of other people requires self-discipline. A lot of people are not taught self-discipline today.
Ain't that the truth?
I'm going to agree with her there, and especially like this year, 2024, it's an election year, so both sides of the aisle are going to fucking shame you if you don't vote their way. So get ready to gray rock and get ready to have some outcome independence and let everything just bounce off you.
Exactly. No matter what you do in life, guys, 50% of everyone is going to hate you. So if you select the red chair, 50% of people are going to hate you. If you select the green chair, 50% of people are going to hate you. So you just may as well do whatever the heck you want.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
Yep.
I'm gonna
do
burn
what
the chair.
works best for you and your context, right? And do that based on real, honest assessments rather than delusional ones. And that's the secret, I believe, secret to success. You have to be willing to do the work and be willing to, before you do the work, come up with a good plan. Measure twice, cut once. So with that, we'll run an ad for your book, Paul, and we'll be out. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today, and we'll catch you all next time.
Life is a journey filled with twists and turns. Why is it that essential life lessons aren't taught in school? You probably know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but do you know how to invest in a Roth IRA? We're not taught to build ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. The roadmap to success is more than just a college degree. You don't have to follow the traditional route. Success isn't confined to a classroom. It's about discovering your own path. You ever wish that someone handed you a guidebook to life when you were 18? Well, it's never too late to rewrite your story. Everything I wish I knew when I was 18. Advice for young men to create a great life for themselves. This book is your compass, guiding you to pick the right career, how to invest wisely, and how to prepare for a fulfilling future. To take control of your health and your fitness, learn how to date efficiently and find genuine desire, and master the art of leading healthy relationships. Your path is defined by the choices you make, not by others' expectations. Don't wait until you're 35 to unlock your potential. Order your copy now on Amazon. Rewrite your story. Build the life you deserve.